Well, good evening and welcome to the latest Telephone Town Hall Community Conversation. I'm Spokane Mayor David Condon, and I'm glad you've taken the time to join us here this evening. Today, we're talking about a couple issues like we always do in the fall. We're talking about our annual budget, some $700 million invested into our city. We'll talk about some of the highlights. One of the key ones is 10 more police officers to continue our initiative to be the safest city of our size. Also, a major change could be considered this fall in November, and that would be with the school bond, which would support 3 new middle schools and 3 renovated schools. Also, a public library bond, which would be 3 new libraries and 4 more modernized libraries. So joining me for this conversation is Spokane Public Schools Superintendent Shelley Redinger. Thanks for joining us, Shelley.
Good evening. And
also Spokane Public Library Director Andrew Chance. Thanks for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
So as we get started, of course, we are hearing from many of our citizens, and we have many on the phone or on Facebook or with us on Channel 5. I just thought maybe we'd answer a few of the first questions. And so as we start, this is one of the first times we've ever done a partnership like this with both the schools and also our libraries. Shelley, could you start us with some of the things that are in the school bond?
Absolutely. Well, a big part of this bond is middle schools. So as we move to the 6-8 model, we have 3 new middle schools we'll be building and then renovating 3 middle schools. So it's a big middle school focus. The goal is to reduce class size at elementary. We're really just overcrowded at our elementary schools, so this would give us a chance to give some space. We also have more and more special programs that need space in the elementary schools. So it's really an opportunity to really upgrade our middle school situation and our elementaries.
And tell us a little highlights of what's happening in the libraries, Andrew.
So for the libraries, really, we have 7 major projects that we have. 4 of those are modernizing our libraries. Our libraries were built in the mid-90s, so that's really the technology boom that has happened over the past few decades. So we'd like to address some of those needs, as well as address some underserved areas of the community. So we'll be expanding our footprint in service in areas like East Central and Hilliard.
Well, that's awesome. And Ian, our host for the call, and our callers that are listening, could you tell our audience what they should do?
Absolutely. So for those of you in our phone audience, if you have a question that you'd like to submit, just go ahead and push 0 on your phone right now or at any time during this call. You'll have the opportunity to ask your question live, but if you prefer not to ask it live, you should still press 0 and submit your question, and then I'm happy to read it. Whatever your preference is, just let your operator know when you press 0.
Well, thank you, Ian. And again, thank you to those that are listening on the phone, those on Facebook, and of course, those on City Cable 5. As we talk about the future libraries, Andrew, can you tell us a little bit how our libraries are going to look different?
Right, so you're going to see more options for technology. You're going to see more spaces for people to interact, to meet as small groups. One of the frustrations we have in our current facilities is we really have a conflict of interest sometimes with the different audiences that we serve. We serve folks from birth to senior. So what we hope to do is hope to be able to reduce some of that conflict, because kids still want to be kids, adults want to be kids, and sometimes that just doesn't go together. So more flexible spaces around the different audiences.
And tell us where your new libraries, you alluded to it a little bit, but where are the new libraries and how are those going to look different?
So we'll have 1 new library in partnership with Spokane Public Schools, and that'll move across the street. The Hilliard Library will move across the street to Shaw. We'll move the East Central Library just a mile away to the Liberty Park area. We'll be able to double the size of that facility, and we'll put a new library just across the highway, because in our community outreach, we realize the I-90 is a divide for the community, so placing a library on Sprague to serve that population.
So really, new services in different parts of our city, expanded services, larger spaces for people to come together and continue their lifelong learning from early childhood all the way through adults.
Exactly.
Shelley, you've been doing a lot of things in our school district, having many different options for people. What does this bond allow you to do with those options?
Well, two programs in particular, option programs. On Track Academy, which has really helped improve our graduation rate over the years. We would like to expand that program and let it be a little bit more comprehensive. So that program could grow and expand on the Shaw campus along with the library, and we think that would be a really good resource as well. The other is giving more space at the Libby Center allows us to expand some of our programs there as well. We have some dual language programs. We have our gifted and talented program based there. So it allows us to have some flexibility.
And what are the benefits going to a 6, 7, 8 model for our middle schools?
Well, there's a lot of research about grade level bands, and for years in Spokane we have been 7, 8. And what we have found is it's just too short of a time period for students to be in school before they get another transition. They transition in, then they transition out. So adding 6th grade allows for more continuity. Also, the curriculum is really aligned much better K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12. So it really helps us really meet the needs of our students better.
And this would be across the city?
Correct, across the city. We'd still have some options. For example, at the Montessori program, we have a K-8 option. The IST, the Institute for Science and Technology at North Central, will be a 6-12 option. So we'll have some other options for families rather than just having the 6-8 model, but the majority of our middle schools would be 6-8.
Well, thank you very much. Ian, do we have any questions from our listeners?
Yeah, I've got one to start, and then I'll, for those of you who may have just joined us on this city town hall meeting, you can press 0 if you'd like to submit a question at any time. And if you prefer to ask that question live, you'll have that opportunity. If you'd like me to ask that question on your behalf, go ahead, push 0, submit that question, and then I'm happy to read it for you. Our first question, Mayor, is why are 3 new middle schools needed in Spokane?
Right, very good question, so I'll take that one. So we do need the 3 new middles schools really to reduce class size at elementary. So our enrollment has been steady to slightly upturning over the years, and we're projected to grow, so we want to make sure we have some space for growth. The other is with the new class size, the law around new class size. At K-3, we need to continue to significantly reduce those classes. We don't have space currently at the elementary school, so that would give us a chance to do that and actually do it in school buildings rather than continue to purchase portables. Portables are not the best investment of our taxpayers' dollars. They become very expensive, and really they don't last very long, and they're not the best learning environment.
And one of the key things about this partnership with the city is where those schools are located. And of course, as we talk about new schools, it really showed us an opportunity as part of our strategic plan with the city council to leverage our city-owned property. So one of those schools will be, or all the 3 new ones will be on city-owned property. One at the Joe Albee site, the former parking lot or the current parking lot, one on North Foothills Drive, and a third right next to Mullen Road, correct, on city-owned property. And so really an opportunity that the citizens don't have to pay for that property again. Not only that, but they're strategic in all across the city. And what are the 3 schools that you're going to completely renovate?
So we have Glover in the northwest part of our community. We have Shaw in the northeast community, and then Sacagawea on the South Hill. So we will be doing those together as we build the new schools and phase them in over a 6-year period, the life of the bond. So the first 2 years, we would probably start with the northeast part of our community, move to the northwest, and then finish the last 2 years on the South Hill.
So really 2 brand new schools per part of the city. That's a really exciting opportunity. Do we have any other questions, Ian?
We sure do, and we've got a live one coming up next.
All right.
I wanted to remind everybody who's on the phone, if you want to submit a question, press 0. We have Mayor David Condon, and we have Public School Superintendent Shelley Redinger here on the line to answer your question. So again, press 0, just like Donna did. Hey, Donna, you're live on the line. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hello, Donna.
My question is that if the Albee Stadium is built on the north bank of the downtown, there isn't going to be any way that the older people can even get to a game because the distance to walk and parking is going to be so far away. Are you going to have a trolley or something that's offered to these people, or?
Well, thank you for
that.
that.
At Albee, it's a little different situation.
Absolutely, Donna, and I thank you for that question. A couple great opportunities for us if the citizens do decide to put or give the advice to us about putting it downtown is the real reality is there is the parking immediately adjacent to the stadium. And also we have now had 3 other providers of parking that will provide parking when there's larger events. The commitment from the Public Facilities District district would be that that if the school district decided to put at a central location, that the parking would be free, and it would be the parking that's available there at the arena. The second piece is it really is more centrally located for using public transit. Right now, there is service out to the northwest part of town, but not at the consistency there is in on that north bank core and in the core of the city. And it's more centrally located for all of our schools to come to. So there's going to be alternatives with using public transit and more consistent and frequent. And then also we have a commitment from the Public Facilities District that has that parking that's available right there around the arena. And so those are the things we'd looked at. It also allows, because we have intelligent designed traffic control in that area, really allows us to bring traffic in and out of that area much more effectively than we do in a neighborhood. I mean, the end result is there's one intersection that goes into the Joe Albi that is a flashing red light. And so, of course, the opportunities in the downtown core give us those other opportunities. But again, that's why we put it as a third measure, so that we can listen to the citizens and really make that determination. And of course, there will be a middle school in that parking, because the new stadium at either site is about 5,000 seats, because that's really what the school district needs.
Great. Thanks very much, Mayor, and thank you, Superintendent Rediger, as well. Thank you, Donna. Appreciate your question very much. We're going to do our first survey question in just a moment, but first let's get another question up. We've got Beth live next. Hey, Beth, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a supporter of the libraries and the schools, and I've actually already voted, but my question is about your process for this meeting. I'm sitting at home having dinner, my phone rang, and I was just dialed in by you to this Zoom meeting. Why are you doing that? What is it about this process that makes you think that people want their privacy violated in this way?
Well, I appreciate your call as we continue to engage our citizens. We've been doing these now for about 6 years during the budget process, and really getting people's priorities for our budget. Of course, as a major component of our 2019 budget is this initiative. So we're also talking about the city budget. We've prioritized the draft budget that will go to the City Council here in the next couple weeks. Key investments in public safety, key investments in infrastructure, key investments in economic development. And so we want to engage all of our citizens, and this is another way to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And Beth, we have had over 2,200 people join this forum, so we appreciate you being one of those. Thanks very much for your participation. Let's go to our first survey question next. We want to know, schools and libraries partnering to promote lifelong learning throughout the community is the right direction for Spokane. Do you agree with this statement? Press 1 if you completely agree, 2 if you somewhat agree, 3 if you somewhat disagree, and 4 if you completely disagree. Again, this statement is, schools and libraries partnering to promote lifelong learning throughout the community is the right direction for Spokane. Do you agree with this statement? Press 1 for completely agree, 2 for somewhat agree, 3 for somewhat disagree, and 4 for completely disagree. And I'd also like to remind everybody that you can follow the city on Facebook or Twitter at Spokane City. And we're going to go to our next question live from Mel. Hey, Mel, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, I got a really a funny thing, like up on Regal by Ferris High School. You got to put a camera up there. You'd make a ton of money. They go blowing through there at 50, 55 miles an hour, and it's just unreal what they go through there. And I don't know if they got a lot of credit cards, they got a lot of money, or what, but they do not, you know, that 20 mile an hour up there is just unreal.
Well, I
so
think,
if you could maybe take a look at that. They used to have the radar up there once in a while, the motorcycle, and once in a while some of the SUVs up there. But here lately, I mean, it is just unreal.
Well, thank you very much. And this is a huge partnership. And with us tonight is the police chief. And I might ask him just to comment on this, because this is a partnership that we have with our traffic unit, is with our schools and safe routes to schools. And so Chief Meidel is with us, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what you guys are doing in the traffic unit. Chief?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So interesting. I go to neighborhood council meetings fairly routinely, in addition to obviously property crimes, which we are making some headway on. Traffic tends to be the #1 concern we hear from the neighborhoods. So what we've done is we've established a traffic hotline, and what we've committed to as the city of Spokane is working every single complaint that comes into this traffic hotline. The easiest way to relay that information is dial 311, ask to pass along your traffic concern, and then our guarantee is that our traffic officers will work that concern that you bring forward.
And so that, of course, is one of the key reasons why we're looking at 10 more officers in next year's budget. So as the chief addresses the issues that are concerns of our citizens, he has the resources, the people, the officers to assign, whether it be to property crime or traffic or other initiatives. We also, as you spoke to, have other options. And so that's where we work with the school district. We've had a lot of work on that intersection on 37th and Regal. To make it safer. That feeds into also our traffic engineers of how we design those intersections. As the school district went to redo that school at Ferris, as we look down 37th all the way down to Chase, that's why you see larger sidewalks, because of course you have grade schoolers and middle schoolers that are going to that area. But you bring up a very good point, and that's why we want to make sure that we align your tax revenue, your tax is to the top priority, and that still is public safety. And so to the chief and his team, we need to continue to look at where we place that. The other asset that I would ask you to look at is through the neighborhood council system. We do have the signs that show the speed you're going. There has been one on 37th on the, I guess it'd be the west side of 37th, because I see it. So it really starts to educate folks to see how fast they're going, and we find those to also work as we use every different method to address those issues and to safety.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mel. Appreciate you being in, and thanks so much for your question. We'll have another survey question in just a moment here. A reminder, you can press 0 to submit a question of your own. Our next one comes from Shafara. Hey, you're live. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Shafara, and I was wondering if there was going to be any funding for Gateway to College at Spokane Falls Community College.
Well, I appreciate your call. Of course, that would be through the community college budget, but that does give us an opportunity. Superintendent, could you talk about your T24 initiative and how you really focus on making those transitions?
Well, we do have a very strong partnership with Christine Johnson, the Chancellor of the Community Colleges of Spokane, and work very closely with her on programs like Gateway to College. So we do some sharing with staff. We've looked at doing some things with transportation to help that program be successful. So it is a strong partnership, and it's really good to hear a caller wanting to know more about that. And we really do focus on that T24, making sure students have technical, trades, 2-year, 4-year, and so Gateway to College fits in nicely with that. So we'll continue to look at ways to partner with Gateway to College with community colleges.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have some more questions?
We do, and thank you, Shafara. Appreciate you being on. We're going to run our next survey question before we take our next live question. A new stadium should be designed for multiple purposes, including sports like soccer, football, and lacrosse, but also for school and community concerts and other events. Tell us whether you agree or disagree with this statement. You can press 1 for completely agree, 2 for somewhat agree, 3 for somewhat disagree, 4 for completely disagree. Again, the statement is, a new stadium should be designed for multiple purposes, including sports like soccer, football, and lacrosse, but also for school and community concerts and other events. Press 1 if you completely agree with this statement, 2 if you somewhat agree, 3 if you somewhat disagree, and 4 if you completely disagree. And our next question is one I'm going to read, and again, you can press 0 if you want to submit a question. You can go live or let your operator know you want me to read it. Next one is, how could these proposals advance safety and security in Spokane schools? Mayor, who should take that one on?
Well, actually, the superintendent. It's a major component of their bond issue.
Yeah, safety, we have actually, one of the items is a pot of money that we use for upgrading safety and security in all of our schools. And right now, we actually have a group that's coming in, they're called Safe Havens, doing a study of all of our schools to see what we need to add to upgrade. And so what their findings, what they come out with, is what we will use these dollars to help fund those changes. Single point of entry was something we've funded over the years, cameras to make sure that we have a real safe, secure environment. A key component of this bond also is Lewis and Clark High School, where we're finding more and more the need for them to have a safe place to have lunch that will house all the students. So a new cafeteria commons area is a big part of this bond for Lewis and Clark High School.
Thank you very much. You know, as we have more folks on the phones and others just joining us on Facebook, we're talking about the city budget, some $700 million invested in our community with top priorities in public safety and infrastructure, and also our continued economic development and job growth in the city. We also are talking about two major initiatives that are on the ballot that would be part, our portion of those, both in our public libraries, and a major initiative there with new libraries, 3 new libraries and 4 modernized libraries, really bringing our libraries to the next generation for lifelong learning. And then also a great partnership with our school district in 3 new middle schools, 3 renovated middle schools, and other investments across the city. And really a great opportunity for us to partner in land, to partner in where those schools go, and really to bring an integrated solution to our citizens at a time that in 2019 our property taxes are reduced. And if we have questions about that, we have the experts here that will help us answer those questions about what will this cost and what will this investment be and what will citizens see as the impact on their property taxes. So with that, we're more than happy to take some more questions.
Sure thing. And I've got the results from our first 2 survey questions. The first one we asked you was to agree or disagree with the statement, schools and libraries partnering to promote lifelong learning throughout the community is the right direction for Spokane. 54% of you completely agreed with that statement. 31% somewhat agreed. 8% completely disagreed, and 7% somewhat disagreed. So thanks for voting in that poll. Our second poll, we asked if you agreed with the statement, a new stadium should be designed for multiple purposes, including sports like soccer, football, and lacrosse, but also for school and community concerts and events. 57% said completely agree. 19% said somewhat agree, 9% somewhat disagree, and 15% completely disagree. So stick around and keep voting in our polls. We really do appreciate that. We've got a few more for you. We've got our next live question coming from Jim. Hey, Jim, you're up.
Very simple. I just want to know, we had a meeting at the Chief Gary Park neighborhood the other night, and they run a bunch of numbers past us so fast that my mind couldn't keep track of them. And my question is, what's it going to do? Are they going to raise our property taxes, make it the same, or reduce them? Since I understand the way they were talking, that some bonds were expiring.
You know, Jim, thank you for the call, and always great to hear from our neighbors. And we've been out at literally hundreds of community events and really engaging with our citizens. And you bring up a very good point. And so our Chief Financial Officer, Gavin Cooley, will answer that. And also for those watching on City Cable 5 and on Facebook, there will be a slide that you can see. And of course, you can get all the information you want on our website on this topic also. But Gavin, could you walk through what's happening with our taxes next year?
You bet. And I think it gets a little bit confusing because we have changes in the tax rates that are happening anyway because of the McCleary decision. And so we have a large decrease in taxes occurring. And the decrease in taxes for going from 2018 to 2019 is actually $2.20 per thousand. So it's a very large tax decrease, obviously an opportunity for people in Eastern Washington where we're picking up that kind of reduction. But if we include the 2 levies that we're talking about, 79 cents for the school levy for the school bond and another 19 cents for the library bond, then we end up, instead of having that $2.20 decrease, we still have a $1.22 decrease. So in any event, you have a decrease, but we're finding an opportunity to still have a very substantial decrease even after the 2 proposed bond levies.
So for the school investment, if you own a home that is $200,000 on the school side, it'd be about $158 a year, and on the library side, $38 a year. And so really changing fundamentally what education, lifelong learning, and the partnership looks like. And the reality is the libraries have their bond expired. What year did your bond expire?
Oh, in the mid-2000s.
So in the mid-2000s, the libraries that are in place today were paid off. And then, Superintendent, you would have normally gone for your routine replacement bonds. And when would that have happened?
That would have happened in 2021. So our plan is to expedite. We found by expediting it and going now, and then we would not run again until like 2024. But we'll be saving the taxpayers quite a bit of dollars by doing it now rather than waiting because of the cost of inflation.
And so really a great opportunity for us as we see the way and the change in the way the state funds K-12 education. So in this investment, your taxes would go down $2.20. We are asking, that's the two measures, one on the city side for our libraries, one on the school side, which would be a total of 98 cents. So your taxes still would reduce by $1.22. And so you would be able to keep that and then vote to invest in these two options. And then, of course, there's a third vote, the second vote under the city, which is to give advice on where a new stadium would go, whether we put it at the current site or put it as a multi-use facility in the core of the city.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Jim. Thanks so much for being on our call. We're going to go right to our next live question. This one's coming from Rob. Hey, Rob, you're up. Go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you for the forum and for inviting us to be a part of it. I actually live in the county, but I was still invited to the call, but I think my question still applies. My interest is in wanting to know what benefits a single person with no children can draw from having to pay taxes for education in libraries.
Well, I'll jump in. You know, we always talk about the quality of your schools really does affect the value of your home, the value of your properties. So we feel that investing in schools and to keep our schools really strong so that people want to be in our schools, keep strong, healthy neighborhoods. And then partnering with the libraries, again, we're making sure that we're using dollars wisely and working together and keeping those strong neighborhoods.
You know, and you bring up a very good question as we talk, and our listeners or those watching, you know, the number one reason why someone buys the home that they buy in the neighborhood, ask any real estate agent, it is access to quality education, and where are they doing that? And so what's really exciting is to see Spokane Public Schools with the superintendent's leadership and her team as we're starting to see that growth. And I think it has a lot to do with their strategic vision to have many different options. And what's even more exciting, and maybe Andrew, you could talk a little bit about the program collaboration with Spokane Virtual Learning and what's going to happen in some of our libraries as another option for our citizens.
Sure. So over the course of us developing this plan, we pinpointed some options to really partner with Spokane Public Schools, and Spokane Virtual Learning really seemed like a smart option. So we've had a informal partnership over the past few years where we've partnered and provided space in place for teachers to meet with their students and really seen the students' outcomes significantly increase through the partnership. So at our Liberty Park location as well as our Shadle location, that will be an option for Spokane Public Schools students. And
other students that are part of SVL, some of the students that are in other schools outside of the Spokane Public Schools.
Sure. And the other option that we're looking at is really Sprague Avenue. The Spokane Public Schools needs to have a place to give their teachers a place to train and learn. They wouldn't be using that all the time, so it makes sense for the library to be utilizing that space when the school's not using it. And we'd house a library there as well.
And you know, there's been many questions about this initiative at this time, and questions about other infrastructure. You know, in next year's budget, as I said, we're also talking about the city budget for next year. Some $47 million going in to the work that we're going to be doing, and really seeing what happens when we do those investments. We're seeing an increase in property values. We're seeing people, especially when they see the streets. But you know, several years ago, the citizens passed a street initiative that really gave us the opportunity for our linked initiative, where we're linking all of our infrastructure investments, and we're now tracking property values to the adjacent investments that we have made, and we're seeing those increases. And part of the City Council and the Mayor's strategic initiative is to increase property values so that people, as they invest in their property, that they see that those investments hold out. And one of the major ways is partnership both in our libraries, yes, our parks that we're seeing, and then also our schools.
All right, thanks so much. And thank you, Rob. Appreciate you being on the call. Thanks so much for your question. We're going to go to another question that I'll read, and then we'll be shifting to some survey questions about the 2019 city budget. So we'll have the mayor speak on that after this question. Our next question, though, is, as so many people adopt new technologies, what do the libraries of the future look like?
You know, I think that we are the place for that new technology, for people to come to the library and learn about really what's on the bleeding edge. I mean, right now we have 3D printers, we have things with virtual reality. That's what people are starting to expect with their libraries, is that lifeline to technology. You know, we have staff there that will assist people with, you know, their devices. And I think that that's going to be a continued role for libraries in the future. And it's also just providing that space, you know, for people to use the technology in a effective way.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And maybe we'll transition for a few moments on the city budget. If we could, as we talk about, and we're more than happy, of course, to continue to take calls about these two initiatives that do affect the 2019 budget, I just want to touch on a couple for our listeners and those watching at home. We've really looked at it to make sure that we're aligned with your priorities. That's actually part of this call, that we hold ourselves accountable to the outcomes, that we make these investments and we get from the programs that we expect. And then finally, that we make sure that it's affordable. And that's why what you hear constantly is that we're holding our city budget. We are not asking for increases like this one. We will see a decrease in our taxes, and that's why we're asking you if you would like to make some key investments with those savings that you see. But if I could, I'll just break the budget down into three areas. Of course, our top three priorities is to be a safer community, safest city of our size, an investment in 10 more police officers, $1 million to go into our fire department because we're in the middle of a pilot program right now that's allowing us to look at fire response and health response in a different way. This does not pay for the full year. It fills the gap so that we can really see where the right investments are going to be for the 2020 budget so that we can get the results out of that pilot program. We'll also see some $600,000 invested in working with our most vulnerable, and particularly the homeless, and making sure that we have the resources we need to our human services staff and to our partners in this endeavor. We will also continue in a great partnership that we've had with the public safety and with our city council in making investments in fire equipment and apparatus and also in police vehicles so that we have the proper equipment when we make the investments in the individuals. Two other areas to break down the budget. We're looking, of course, to be smarter, a smarter way of using our dollars. There will be some $227 million invested in capital and street construction. We, of course, are going to continue on our initiative to make us more engaged with our citizens and especially our customers in enhancing our 311 service. At the same time as holding our utility rates, water, wastewater, or sewer, and garbage rates at our commitment of 2.9% or at inflation, rather than seeing the double-digit increases we've seen in previous years. We'll continue to focus in our targeted investment areas to grow our jobs. We've seen amazing results over the last year in the investments we've made in infrastructure and programs in those areas. And the final piece is to be a healthier community. And that's part of the initiatives we're talking about today, of a strategic investment in our libraries and lifelong learning, and also in our schools. What's exciting about these 6 middle schools is, yes, there'll be great opportunities for education, but there'll also be community park assets. They come with acres of fields and gymnasiums, and our partnerships over the years with the Spokane Public Schools is really enhanced that experience for each of our neighborhoods. So again, a great opportunity for next year's budget.
Thanks
Ian,
so much,
do we
Mayor.
have some questions?
We do. We've got Loretta coming up next. Hey, Loretta, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering exactly how many police officers are going to be hired for the year 2019, and what are we going to do about property crime? Because you can put in a call to Crime Check, and basically it's just an exercise in futility. Nothing is going to be done. Constantly somebody is having something taken from their yards, or their yards gone through, or their garages gone through. When is enough enough?
Well, I appreciate your phone call because you're exactly why we, and I'm glad that we're aligning with your priority, and that's why 10 more police officers are in the budget. we are at the highest level of police officers that we've been. We are seeing some benefits to that investment. We also really want to partner with the community because I agree with you. We need to address this issue. And that's why you'll see that major investment, and you've seen it over the years. Chief Meidel is with us, and maybe he can touch on a thing or two about really the initiatives in property crime, one that he's personally involved in, and we've seen some holding ourselves accountable, some success, especially in the area of vehicle theft. But Chief, tell us a couple of the initiatives that these investments will help you with.
So one of the initiatives we've been working on for the last year and a half is our vehicle theft initiative, and we've seen a pretty good decrease in vehicle thefts in the Spokane area, especially when you compare it to the rest of the state. So if you look at the west side of the state, you're going to see vehicle thefts are trending up. With the focused efforts the Spokane Police Department has committed to vehicle theft reduction, we're actually seeing that our vehicle thefts are going down in Spokane. In fact, we've gone from being in the top 10 to now number 36 in the nation for vehicle thefts. We still have a lot of room to go, but we're continuing to make progress. The other thing is Washington State is the only state in the country that does not have property crime supervision. So out of all 50 states, we're the only one where if you go to prison for property crime, you get out, there is absolutely no supervision. We also are #1 in the nation as a state for property crime recidivism. So one of the things we've been doing for the last 2 years, and we're going to do it again next year as well, is go to the state legislatures and ask them to bring back that property crime supervision. We're convinced that if we can be like the other 49 states, we will actually see even further reductions in property crimes in Spokane. We're also put together a conglomerate of the city administrator, city council, myself, in a working group to look at the property crimes occurring in Spokane from a holistic perspective, in everything from home monitoring to home checks, the electronic home monitoring, to doing home checks, looking at what can we do differently with the courts and perhaps some sentencing in the municipal courts as well. So there's a lot of things that we're working on. A couple of the big ones are the things that I've just mentioned. So we anticipate if we can get these things done, we'll see further decreases in property crime.
Great. Thank you so much for those answers. And thank you, Loretta. Appreciate your question. That leads us right into our next survey question. This is another question we're going to ask if you agree or disagree with the statement, which is, the Spokane Police Department is making progress toward improving public trust and confidence. Press 1 if you completely agree with that statement, 2 if you somewhat agree, 3 if you somewhat disagree, and 4 if you completely disagree. Again, the statement is, the Spokane Police Department is making progress toward improving public trust and confidence. Press 1 for completely agree, 2 for somewhat agree, 3 for somewhat disagree, 4 for completely disagree. And I'll remind folks that we've got about 25 minutes left. You can press 0 to submit a question, and our next one comes from Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Good evening. Thank you for the call. I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this. My comment, and I appreciate the shift of the budget over to the city budget regarding streets and safety. I live in the Hamblin area on the South Hill, and I've got some concerns from the standpoint I've seen progress made in the rebuilding and paving of arterials, but my questions and concerns have to do with some of the residential streets that are around the elementary schools. Some of the streets are in such bad condition that cars are weaving and dodging and darting even through the neighborhoods to avoid sinkholes, potholes, etc. And my second point is that many of the intersections around the elementary schools are uncontrolled, meaning there's not a stop sign on either street. So just concerned from a standpoint, one, quality of the pavement in the residential areas and the lack of controlled intersections are for the safety of the kids around these elementary schools.
Well, I appreciate
if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. Let's start with the streets, and thank you to the citizens as we engaged them, and they voted overwhelmingly for the street levy, and that's really allowed us to do a lot of work. And you're right, we focused primarily on arterials. But Scott Simmons, the director of our Public Works and Utilities Division, is here with us, and maybe he can talk about a refocusing also on maintenance, and particularly in our residential streets. Scott?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So during the street levy that the citizens overwhelmingly approved, as the mayor mentioned, part of the city's commitment was to take and double our investment into residential street maintenance. We were investing to the tune of $2 to $2.5 million back in 2014. This year alone, in 2018, we've doubled that to $4.5 million. We have a citizen-led committee called the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee that spends time looking and working with our street department to understand where some of the residential street opportunities exist for maintenance, and they work to prioritize those residential roads each and every single year for us to then program for the maintenance. So it's an opportunity for citizens to get involved and be part of that process. We also work with the schools closely on improving the safety around those schools. So these that you mentioned, there might be others that are in need of crosswalks or additional enhancements. So it's something that we work with really closely with the schools to improve. But the residential streets are certainly the increase in investments are occurring. You'll start to see those more. If you want to see what residential streets are being improved, you can go to the city website and look at our 6-year street maintenance plan.
And so again, thank you, Scott, for that. And as we really focus, we've had a lot of new looks at how we take care of our streets. And people have asked, Mayor, shouldn't we focus on that type of infrastructure? And thanks to the citizens and to our way of linking these investments together, that's why you've seen so much construction. That will continue, and why it is a major focus of next year's capital budget is our streets, is the maintenance of our streets, and also the underground infrastructure of water and sewer, and now partnering with our private utilities, whether that be Vista or our telecommunications companies. And really, we're seeing great results from that. So please be engaged so that we know where to prioritize. We do have a citizen committee that informs us of where that can be. You can call 311 to find out, go to our website, and of course you always can email me directly at mayor@SpokaneCity.org.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you being on. Thanks so much for your question. We've got the results of our last survey question. We asked if you agreed with this statement. The Spokane Police Department is making progress toward improving public trust and confidence. 25% of you completely agreed, 46% somewhat agreed, 18% somewhat disagreed, and 11% completely disagreed. We're going to move on right away to our next survey question, which is another a sort of different question. We're going to ask you what your priority would be. So as the city considers where it invests additional resources, what would your highest priority be? Press 1 if it would be to hire more firefighters. Press 2 if you would hire more police officers. Press 3 if you would improve streets faster. Press 4 if you would fund additional homeless resources. And press 5 if it's something else or none of the above. Again, as the city considers where to invest additional resources, your highest priority would be press 1, hire more firefighters. 2, hire more police officers. 3, improve streets faster. 4, for fund additional homeless resources. And 5, for something else or none of the above. We'll have the results of that in just a minute, as well as one more survey question. We've got Alicia live on the line next. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Hi, you're live. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. This is Pastor Mitchell. First of all, Mayor, I want to thank you for putting this on and allowing me to participate in this. This is very, very good. The question that I have is about the homeless. And as you know, we've partnered with the city in trying to help that situation. But what the challenge that we have right now is a lot of the garbage that is brought upon by that, and our fees for garbage is just escalated, and I was just wondering if there could be some help in that.
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Mitchell, and of course, what you and Family Promise and so many of our partners have done as we really look at addressing the most vulnerable in our community. And what you just talked about is exactly what we pride ourselves on, and really what tonight is all about, and that's about partnerships. And it's exciting to do that and to address the issues. Today we have our folks on the team that make this happen. Heather, why don't you tell us how could we address this issue for our partners and others in the area?
Absolutely. We are always looking forward to partnerships to have a safer, cleaner, healthier community, working with our partners and with neighborhoods to make events in which we can assist with that, both directly through the neighborhood councils, through our neighborhood cleanup programs, such as dump pass, roll-off events, curbside cleanup, appliance cleanup, as well as partnering with businesses in our business districts to have cleanup opportunities to remove that solid waste in our community. We also are providing additional resources through our partners in our public works, where we're providing more containers in our business districts and throughout the downtown area so that we have convenience for disposing of materials. And we have partnerships with Spokane County Geiger Correction Crews so that we're out in the community responding to contacts through our 311 system to let us know where there are areas where we need additional cleanup. So those correction crews are out there daily through the week, including Saturdays, cleaning up areas of our community, again, to make it safer, cleaner, and a place they want to stay.
Thank you. Do citizens, how do they lodge if there's some of that in their area or they see it? How do they tell us about that?
Oh, please contact 311, and that information will get directly to our resources, and we can respond and get out there and clean that up.
And thank you for that. I think also Reverend Pastor Mitchell is talking about they're a nonprofit providing, and of course they, as you prepare meals and you provide services, their commercial dumpster rates are burdensome. Is there an option, or how could Pastor Mitchell address that issue? And Scott, of course, Simmons, who runs our public works, is there an option for nonprofits that have just your typical commercial dumpster? Is there any rates, or is there a way that they could work with the city to still provide those services, but at the same time not be overburdened by our costs?
You bet. Thanks, Mayor. I would also, Pastor Mitchell, give a call into 311. They can help you with our solid waste rates and talk to you through certain programs we have for nonprofits and others.
Well, awesome.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor. Appreciate you being on the call. We're going to go to another question that was submitted via Facebook, and it's on the same topic. With temperatures decreasing, what will the city do to help those experiencing homelessness this winter?
Well, thank you for that, and of course it's top of mind of all of us as the temperatures get cooler and as we work with our partners. Kelly runs our Human Services Department, and Kelly Keenan is with us. Kelly, could you answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for that question. So currently the city's working on both an interim plan to make sure we can serve those who in our community who are experiencing homelessness, as well as making longer-term adjustments to our coordinated homelessness response system. In the immediate term, looking towards us kind of moving into the cold weather season, the city is going to be supporting a warming center program, and city staff are currently working with many programs and providers across the community to put together a warming center system to make sure that we can serve those who are forced to be outside when the temperatures start to get colder here in the coming months. We anticipate that service to be available in November as we really get into the cold weather season. Looking a little bit farther down the road, we're also looking at making new investments both in some key components of our coordinated homelessness response system. That includes both strengthening our outreach services that are provided in the community, and that means having professional outreach workers that can be out in the community meeting our citizens wherever they are, including those who are staying in places that are not meant for human habitation. Our data shows us that professional outreach can be one of the most effective interventions we have in terms of helping assess those who are experiencing homelessness and connecting them with the resources they need to get on a path to permanent housing. In addition to that, we're looking at making new investments in operations for our sheltering system, and that means making sure we're supporting a sheltering system that is safe and dignified for both people who need to access shelter and for the staff that need to run those shelter programs. And again, so that those programs can truly be platforms for those experiencing homelessness in terms of accessing permanent housing resources.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kelly, for that. And of course, as one of our top priorities to be a healthier community, it really is addressing the needs of the most vulnerable. And as we work together to have that strategic plan to address that, this is one of those ways. Ian, do we have another question either on Facebook or on the line?
Yeah, let's get Karen up live next. Hey, Karen.
Hi. Hey, thanks for doing this. I don't always answer the phone during dinner time, but I'm glad I did this time. This is very helpful. Question is, this is on a scale of 1 to 10, this is probably like a very minor, but in the winter time when the snowplows come by, outside of laying down in front of my driveway to keep my driveway clear, is there a plan this year? I saw they're buying some new snowplows. to help citizens with keeping their driveways clear. It's just a real hassle trying to shovel all that ice off once it's been built up like that.
Well, I will tell you, this is, you see me smiling if you're watching on television, or you can hear my voice if you're on the phone. This is one area where I really have to give it to the city staff on finding innovative approaches to addressing these issues. Last year we spent several months with community groups on what are the priorities, and we've really revamped the city plow plan. I invite people to go to SpokaneCity.org, and you will see videos about this. You'll see opportunities of how we've changed what we're doing. And Scott Simmons, again, the Director of Public Works, is with us, and maybe you can tell her a little bit about our new investment that we made this year. We already have them on hand. I unveiled them on Monday, so it's not about next year's budget. It was put in this year's budget, and we've made that investment. Scott, could you talk about those?
Sure can. So snow berms, as we affectionately refer to them, are certainly an ire and a sore spot to our citizens. As the mayor mentioned, we actually this year increased the number of pieces of equipment that we're using to reduce snow berms from 7 last year to 16. So last year, the citizens got to experience a rotating crew that went throughout the city as we were piloting it to make sure that we could remove them and eliminate them to the best of our abilities, and also provide the right level of service in an expeditious fashion, because our citizens also want their streets cleared in a timely fashion. The pilot was successful. We continued to purchase more of what we call snow gates this year, so citizens should see even more of those gates in front of their houses when we're getting out there and plowing residential streets. So thanks for asking the question, and we're excited to have the citizens experience those.
And again, if you have issues, if you're disabled, a person with disabilities, or you're elderly and can't, you can't shovel those areas, please do dial 311. There are some community partners out there that are able to do this. I would do that now and not before. We also ask people to make sure that you have a usable snow shovel and/or snow blower. These are the times to do that. It seems a little early to start thinking about snow, but you don't want to be caught on that first snow. We've also revamped the way we respond, especially priority in a partnership with our schools and our hospitals and other key areas that we prioritize, and we've also changed the way we do the routes, and so you want to make sure you're up to date. Also, I encourage people to look at their City of Spokane utility bill this month, and there will be a leaflet in there that goes over all this, and of course you can go to SpokaneCity.org and see all these changes.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you being on. Thanks very much. Great question. Let's go to our next survey question, but first I've got the results of survey question 4. We asked, as the city considers where it invests additional resources, what your highest priority would be. 33% apiece thought fund additional homeless resources and improve streets faster. 25% said hire more police officers. 5% said other, none of the above, and 4% said hire more firefighters. So thank you for voting in those polls. We've got one more right away for you. We want to know, how optimistic are you about Spokane's future? Press 1 for very optimistic, 2 for somewhat optimistic, 3 for not very optimistic, and 4 for not optimistic at all. Again, how optimistic are you about Spokane's future? Press 1 for very optimistic, 2 for somewhat optimistic, 3 for not very optimistic, and 4 for not optimistic at all. And as you're voting on that, let's get our next question up from Vance.
Vance, come here.
Well, hello, Vance. It's Mayor Condon and Superintendent Shelley Redinger and Director Andrew Chance from the libraries.
Hello, how are you doing?
We're doing well.
Good. Okay, you said you were talking about libraries and changing parks and streets and stuff up, and I was saying that I would not like a library all so digitalized. So, like, I would want, like, books in the library still, not like on a tablet or a computer or iPad or something.
Yeah, so that's the thing about libraries is we serve a very diverse population, and people have different needs. We'll still have the physical book at our sites, but one of the things that we see as our biggest area of growth over the past few years is actually the digital option. It has I think it's our 3rd or 4th highest circulating branch that we have, so surpassing many of the options that we give in the community. But yes, we'll continue to have the physical book. It's just, as the world has changed, it's become the library's responsibility to provide all these options for the public.
You know, and I guess, Andrew, if you could, with larger libraries, of course, more opportunities for physical collections. Talk a little bit about the 24-hour option and what we have in West Central and where you might put it in other places.
Sure. So the 24/7 option is really an option for folks to check out materials, physical materials, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you wanted to check that out, it is at the West Central Community Center. And folks can check out up to 350 items at their leisure on their time. And we're looking, as part of this bond, to locate 3 more in communities where we don't have a physical location.
So really an opportunity to continue to have physical checkout. I know my kids love it, and we go after hours right before bedtime, and so really a great opportunity to continue to have those physical checkouts. Ian, do we have any more results from our questions?
Yeah, we've got the results of our last poll. We asked, how optimistic are you about Spokane's future? 41% apiece said very optimistic and somewhat optimistic. So that's 82% between the two of them. 12% said not very optimistic, and 5% said not optimistic at all. And thanks so much for everybody voting in those survey questions. We really appreciate that participation. Mayor, we've got our next live question coming from Jane. Hey, Jane.
Hi. I really appreciate this forum. That's great. And my specific question is, it's somewhat related to homelessness, but it seems like there's a lot of people who have low-level, like they're high-functioning but somewhat disabled. So, for example, people who have Asperger's or on the autistic spectrum or other such things. And they would be very capable of working, but they are not capable of getting through the job interview process, and so they end up homeless or somewhere marginalized, and there seems to be nothing in this community that it could provide a bridge to help them overcome their disability so that they could go and be a productive person and not necessarily be homeless anymore. Do you have is there any plans to provide something for those types of people?
Absolutely. I'll touch on a couple, and I think that's what's at the basis of lifelong learning in different formats. And what you see with our library system, the programs we see in the school district, and offering different ways of learning. I will just comment momentarily on an initiative that we've been working here at the city in particular, and that is really to identify positions within the city government that are really held for those with disabilities. And we need to be an employer of folks, and we have worked on this now for a couple years with our Civil Service Commission that has the vast majority of authority over the positions here at the city. And what's exciting is to see the progress we've made just in the last couple months in this area. Because I'm with you. I believe that people, especially people that are living with a disability, should have the opportunity for full and gainful employment. But also Kelly Keenan, that operates our Human Services, might touch on a couple of the other programs that are part of our partnership. But thank you for that call, because as we build a city of choice, I literally mean for all of our citizens and for our citizens that maybe have a disability but should have full employment, and what that does for their independence and what that does for them personally.
Yeah, well, thanks again for that question. So one of the other initiatives that we've been working on, not just in terms of our coordinated homelessness response system, but also the many other services that the city supports, is thinking really hard about how accessible all the services that the city supports are. One thing that includes is making sure we're thinking about the services that need to be paired with one another or paired together in different ways. So that might mean making sure that we've got housing search services that are paired very closely with work-related services, work search services, and workforce development services. This is something that we've heard from not only from those who've had the experience of navigating our service system, but also from the providers themselves that have been saying for quite some time, these are two things we need to have together in the same room. And so we're looking at many different ways to make that kind of co-located service provision more accessible to the people in the community that need to access those services. Another key initiative we've got that's very much in that same space is what's called the Envision Center. That's another co-located service center we're working on developing right now as we speak. That's going to be one location where we're going to have multiple providers kind of across the sectors of housing support, workforce development, and benefits connection that are all located together in the same office space. And what that's about is trying to reduce barriers to accessing all those different services for the folks that we know may need to access one or more of those at the same time. So we're very much interested in figuring out as many ways as we can to reduce the barriers people have to accessing those services and make sure they can move through those and fully access and get on the path to independence and stability as quickly as possible.
And we're really excited about the Envision Center, as our earlier caller talked about, of having those physical locations. Yes, it's great to put these things online and on the website so that people have access 24/7 or in their home. But there's also a real need for a location. And so we're one of 17 locations selected by HUD, the Human and Urban Development Division of the federal government. And so we're really excited to be opening that up in the next several months and in a partnership with all of our community partners.
All right, great. Thank you so much for those answers. And Jane, thank you very much for your question and for your participation tonight. We've got one more question, and it's one that I'm going to read. The question is, what are we doing to improve the job market in Spokane?
Well, you know, as we look at these critical investments, that's what our plan is. And we do critical investments in targeted areas, our public development authorities, and whether that be on West Plains, where you heard recently of the major Amazon growth and what they're putting there. We also have a major investment in the Public Development Authority of the University District and what we're seeing in life sciences, and the 2 medical schools and 2 nursing schools and the pharmacy school, and all the allied sciences through the community college and that major investment, so that targeted area. The third targeted area is in Northeast Spokane in the Yard. The Public Development Authority there focusing in logistics jobs and focusing in advanced manufacturing. And so you have all of that across. We have targeted areas, also targeted investments in workforce development with the public schools and our higher education, and making sure that our citizens have the skill sets needed in these key industries. And that brings me to the final piece. Though we're really targeting key industries that Spokane has really led the way in. And whether that be in energy, whether that be in ag and resources, and finally in life sciences. And so how do the key investments happen in those areas? And so we're seeing advanced manufacturing in each and every one of those areas based off an amazing history that we've had in this. We've seen amazing logistics jobs. We see the allied jobs of finance and insurance and accounting as a financial center. So it's targeted areas, targeted investments in targeted industries, and we're really seeing a great payoff, and we're holding ourselves accountable as we see one of the lowest unemployment rates. But we want to make sure that that's across all sectors of our society and that we're lifting up our citizens. And as part of our strategic plan with the City Council is to increase the median household income, increase our bond rating at the city as our financial wherewithal, and of course, as we spoke about earlier, increase the property value, that people make investments in our community, whether it be in their house or in their business, and they see that to continue to rise.
All right, thank you so much. Very much appreciate everybody's participation tonight. For those of you who still have questions that we didn't get the chance to answer in this hour-long forum, you can look to our website at SpokaneCity.org, and we'll get those questions answered there in the next few days. Alternatively, if you want to stay on the line after we close out this call in just a minute here, you'll have the opportunity to leave a message just by staying on the line. If you need somebody to get back to you on any issue or question that you have, leave your question or your concern, as well as your name and some contact information so that we know where to get back to you and we will reach out to you. Again, you can do that just by staying on the line as we close out the call. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mayor Condon to take us to the close. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, and for hosting this for our citizens on City Cable 5, on Facebook, and those on the phone. Thank you for being engaged in making that investment in our community for the next year. We want to make sure we're aligned with your priorities, that we look at making sure that we hold ourselves accountable to the outcomes, and at the end, make sure we're affordable. It's been great to have Superintendent Shelley Redinger with us and Director Andrew Chance to talk about an opportunity of a major investment in our public schools and in our library system, an unprecedented partnership. And if people want to find out more about that, you can go to partnershipspokane.org and find out all the details, renderings of what these might look like, the locations of where these investments are, and really what the effect is on your taxes as we make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to you and affordable as we build that city of choice. Thank you again for being a part of being that city of choice, of making us safer, smarter, and healthier.